Hello, everyone, and welcome to Meaningful Conversations with Children Blueprint, Vocabulary Basics. My name is Paige, and I'll be your expat educator for the course. I will elaborate more on myself in the next video, but I just wanted to share this quick intro with you to get you started on what's coming up. Okay, so first I'll share this cartoon to give us a mindset shift. Math can be complex, or in our mindset here, life. And we can laugh when we try to put a simple answer to these things, right? In the cartoon it says, I think you should be more specific here in step 2. Yes, we might need some miracles to be understood or to understand others. And throughout this course, if we just focus on those meaningful relationships in front of us and around us, then, we can start to be more mindful as to what we're talking about and what that means. Thinking about that miracle instead of hoping for that at all times, we can think about it in a new way, which would be relating ideas. Relating ideas is a valuable skill because it helps you understand information more deeply, make connections between different topics, and apply knowledge in new situations, which might seem like a miracle, right? So now I'll tweak that word slightly into relational, and I'll share a list of examples, and you can think about that in a conversation setting. Relational thinking, relational asking, relational perceiving, relational feeling and sensing, relational curiosity and openness, relational synergies, relational capacities, and emotional relations. Which one did you connect to the most? Which one do you have a question about? One big takeaway from this course is that relating happens in meaningful conversations and in a lot of different ways. In this next slide, let's think about the question, how was your day? We can think, yeah, I went to school, yeah, I learned, yeah, I can tell you the subject, but the meaning of it gets a little dull after a while. Maybe we can relate to that. This bottom picture of life is that it's all mixed together. So be mindful of this throughout your meaningful conversations with your children or students, because sometimes life seems kind of boxy and dull, and through these meaningful conversations, we'll see how they can start to liven up and intersect with different ideas, and we'll be building that muscle of relating, like I've said. So another big takeaway is that what we learned can directly or indirectly blend into life. How we learn, why we learn, where we learn, you get the idea. Okay, so here's the table of contents. I'm not going to go too heavily into this because the next video does, but I'll share the structure and give a heads up about the learning environment. Each chapter will have 5 parts, 3 parts elaborating on the topic with teaching videos, PDFs, and links, 1 part with the Common Core state standards, which if you aren't from the US, just think about this like developmental checkpoints. And 1 part is application with videos. 1 will be a travel video that I've made from my trips, and the other will be of someone somewhere in the world to practice. Self-reflection and application along the way will be beneficial. As I said, there will be videos, but in a different context during the lesson, they might be the background of the text. Yes, I know that sounds overstimulating already, but I want to give a more immersive environment of the stimulation that children have. They have so much stimulation, with screen time and also with just so much information constantly. There's a lot to pay attention to. So embrace this possibly frustrating learning curve because in some sense, children are going through this as well. Children are very techy and we are finding a new way of learning. So just be open to the idea of learning in a new way, even if it's not easy at first. Next, I'll touch on the Common Core state standards. I have gotten feedback that time is always a factor. So I just want to give you a heads up that I don't elaborate on all of them. Some of them I do, and I also support you with PDFs. So in one way, yes, it's shorter and more concise. And in another way, it's a big list of standards, which I do list a lot of them. It's not for you to remember, it's just for you to listen. It's also for you to realize how much your children and students are actually learning throughout the year and how much a teacher is intentionally doing activities to achieve these benchmarks with not just 1 or 2 students, but maybe 30 students. So give a shout out and some love to your teachers next time you see them. As an additional challenge, when you hear me list the standards, try to remain present and apply them in quick examples. So just as a quick example of what I mean by that, if there's a video of people talking in the background, then you could be thinking, and you hear a standard about introducing a topic, then you could think about introducing a friend to somebody, or you could think about introducing your idea to a coworker, or you could talk about introducing a trip plan with your partner. Okay, you bring something up, right? You're introducing something. And so this will get easier the more that you practice and the more that you're a bit more open to applying these standards. But again, I hope we don't get too wrapped up in the academic curriculum part of it. Of course, this is all from academics, but when we see the relatability, just as we think about the life in the paint picture, that it all starts to blend together. So I will support you in being intentional through those moments. That's our goal with educating children too. We're supporting them to connect ideas. In the beginning of the course, I talk about key components, focusing on complexity and the growth of comprehension. What I mean by that is, so if it's part of a reading standard, of course, they're going to be reading more complex books, and the growth of comprehension is how much are they understanding, right? So it could be like a little bit. You could have really good fluency but have zero comprehension, or you could have really terrible fluency and comprehend it, or whatever. There's so many factors of our reading abilities, but as I try to connect all of this again, we can think about the complexity and also the growth in comprehension in conversation. So we can have complex conversations. Think to yourself, what complex conversation have you had? That doesn't need to be a good or a bad conversation, but the factors that you need to use critical thinking and different perspectives and those type of things, that's a complex conversation. And are you having complex conversations with your children? Can you think about something in a different way? Even if it's like creating a business, having a conversation about like hypothetical things. The complexity is something that we'll be keeping an eye on throughout this course. And then the growth of comprehension is truly how much are we paying attention? Are we absorbing? Are we understanding? So keep that in mind that we will be doing this. This will be very important, and just preparing us for having more dynamic interactions. We really need to think about this as we're not just talking to people in person. We also have digital access in so many different ways, as from a simple email to video calls. There's so many different options. We are evolving, we are adapting to what's being created. So just be open to the idea of conversations going in different ways. And I'm going to be an advocate to support you, but there's no right or wrong answers through these. I'm really just trying to expand your awareness and capacity to dive deeper. And I'm excited to do that with you. Hopefully you're starting to see how curriculum has potential to sneak in conversation. You'll be getting more examples and support throughout the course. Remember, having meaningful conversations is not something that gets done in one conversation, or in a day, or in a year. It's a concept that will need to continue as we age. So enjoy. Thank you again for joining the course. Let's get started.